Each Nightfarer is the main character of their own story, while no character is truly evil or a saint. What makes Nightfarers special is they often make decisions that will only benefit themselves or the ones around them. From bandits betraying the outer gods for the sake of their companions, to royal knights prolonging chaos indefinitely for their loved ones, Nightreign is full of characters who live for themselves rather than being yet another minion for the greater good. Today we will discover the tragic background and story of each Nightfarer. So, let's begin.
The Earth Tree is no more. What is lost can never return.
The Executor found himself in the Round Table Hold with no memory of the past. He held no past, nothing in his possession, except a cursed sword and an armor that had become one with his body long ago. It wasn't clear why he became a Nightfarer, but something deep inside dragged him towards the Night Lord. He couldn't recall his goal or purpose in life, but he knew that defeating the Night Lord was the only path that led to his purpose. In between hunts, he had the opportunity to listen his fellow companions. He heard Guardian praising a majestic landmark. The brief conversation opened a door in Executor's mind. He could see a lone painter stranded somewhere in the ocean across the fog, fighting waves as big as mountains. He could see the painter losing to those deadly waters. Eventually, Painter from the distant land of reeds washed up on the shore unlike anything she had seen before. The lands between was as majestic as they had always said back in the land of reeds. She started aimlessly wandering across the lands between. She knew nothing of this new world, but her destination was clear. The golden tree in the distance was calling for her. She was inspired by the golden leaves gliding across the sky. She was there for a reason, but something was still missing. And there, Executor's vision ended. He couldn't make out who the painter was, but he inherited her inspiration. He was drawn to the brush. He felt he needed to complete the Earth Tree's painting. Executor didn't think too much of the vision. He continued his hunt. After all, his goal was defeating the Night Lord. On his expedition, he came across a bloodhound knight. The battle wasn't difficult, but it led to something interesting. Executor discovered blessed flowers after the fight. Later in the Round Table, the flowers reminded him of the ones that once grew around his shed. Part of him remembered who he was. I'm an artist painting the Earth Tree. I'm a guest bearing a sword. I'm silent. I'm witness. He repeated as the visions brought him to the shed where the painter was at peace. But the visions didn't end. He wasn't seeing from the painter's eyes. He was watching her from distance. I'm a guest, or perhaps an executioner. A moment ago, he was certain that the woman from Land of Reeds was who he truly was, but now he was watching his true identity from the eyes of an executioner. He was there to slay the painter. He was a mighty crucible knight, living and breathing to bring the judgment of the first Elden Lord Godfrey. However, he was mesmerized by the woman's painting. The Earth Tree looked beautiful on the old canvas. I will wait until your Earth Tree is complete, the guest said calmly. It was time for Executor to go on another expedition. In his journey, he came across yet another landmark that opened his memory to another vision. A golden spot reminded him of the painter's end. He was once again seeing the vision from the Crucible Knight's eyes. She was out of time. I will entrust it to my guest. I cannot complete the Earth Tree before another executioner arrives in the first one's stead. He could hear the painter's thoughts. He no longer wished to execute her, but they both knew more executioners would soon arrive. She left behind one last sketch. The Crucible Knight, a portrait of my guest, or perhaps my executioner. My guest could not bear to render a judgment here at the painter's shed overlooking the Earth Tree until the very end. The Crucible Knight failed to fulfill his duty. He couldn't slay the painter, but he was broken when he found the lifeless body of his true friend near the new executioner. The Crucible Knight slew the executioner, but it was too late. His only friend was no more. He grabbed the painter's sword, the Suncatcher, and ended his own journey by seppuku. The Crucible Knight's body hit the ground right next to the painter. A curse emerging from the Suncatcher trapped the souls of two friends within one body. Their mind and body were now one. The executor emerged from the curse. He no longer knew who he was, but his only goal was to finish the Earth Tree, and so his journey started. He was destined to defeat the Night Lord and bring the Earth Tree back to its glory.
As those who live in death, we could not rest until the Night Lord was defeated.
The child of Godwyn, one who lives in death. His story is a tame journey aimed to serve the ones who hold his leash. Yet, Iron Eye is no ordinary assassin. He is a true Nightfarer who betrays the living to protect those who live in death. His actions directly challenge the demigods of Leyndell and the tyrannical Golden Order that ruled the lands between for far too long. Iron Eye received yet another letter from the Fellowship. The custodian was satisfied. The deed had been done, just as intended. In the life of a soulless mercenary, this was all that a cutthroat like Iron Eye lived for. The next order didn't take long to arrive. Iron Eye was tasked with exterminating a traitor, someone who played a major role in the destruction of the boarding house in the Duskin Valley. To fulfill his duty, Iron Eye traveled to the lands between, but there was no trace of the target in this chaotic realm. Among fallen armies, scorched fields, and ruined kingdoms, Iron Eye eventually found a lead. The traitor was hiding in the Round Table Hold across the fog. The journey there was easier than expected. Iron Eye was welcomed as an ally against the Night Lord. It was unusual for someone of his nature, but Iron Eye was accepted and even trusted by the priestess of the Round Table. He made a new ally. It didn't take long before he learned more about the monster. The traitor bore a familiar face from a different world. Still, the Fellowship had made their commands clear. The traitor must be slain at any cost. After many expeditions, Iron Eye found the land where the monster was hiding. A long and brutal fight followed against a foe who looked and fought just like him. In the end, Iron Eye emerged victorious, but even then he could still sense the presence of the monster. 2 Night Lords later, Iron Eye was summoned to the catacombs. There, before him lay the traitor. But no one betrays the Fellowship and walks away. But the encounter made it obvious. This was Iron Eye from another world. Without hesitation, he drove his dagger through the monster's thin flesh. The mission was complete for a moment. The traitor died. And then it returned. The child of Godwyn, first of death, could not be so easily killed. It was the curse of those who live in death. The pretender Iron Eye had already completed his story. He saved his kin in his own world. The blood on his armor made it clear. He had slain something mighty to protect the Fellowship. His role was done, so he passed on a secret, one that could end his existence for good. Iron Eye would need the Edge of Order, a blade imbued with holy essence. His next target was clear. After a fierce battle, Fulgur was slain. With the holy dagger in hand, Iron Eye finally put the monster to rest. Only the Night Lord remained. Iron Eye could end the night, bring back the light, and allow the cycle to reset. But even then, he would never be truly free. His prince, Godwyn, could not shield the dead from the wrath of the Golden Order. Those who live in death were hunted, seen as an illness upon the lands between. And before his final mission, Iron Eye understood one devastating truth. If the Night was defeated, he and his kin would be executed by those waiting behind the Veil of Dawn. He could slay the Night Lord and let the cycle begin again, knowing it would doom those he fought to protect. Or he could slay the Night's very presence and prolong the night indefinitely. A never-ending cycle of darkness could finally bring lasting freedom to those who live in death. To fulfill that mission, Iron Eye slew Hailstor one last time. In doing so, he became the next monster, another traitor to be hunted by the Fellowship from another world. He abandoned his own duty to save his allies from the Golden Order, but in the end, he just became his own prey in an alien world still waiting to be saved.
Those who have surrendered themselves to the night even once are powerless to resist its allure.
Revenant opened her eyes in a mansion turned to ruins by the close of the night. Surrounded by blurry memories, she walked across the corridors filled with bodies alien to her. She didn't know where she was. What was the importance of this ruined house? Were the bodies piled across the mansion related to her? It was all a mystery. Without a past, she could still sense the evil approaching under the veils of the night. If she were to figure out her past, first she had to escape. And thus, she arrived at the Round Table Hold. As she fought alongside the Nightfarers, the fog surrounding her mind lifted. As she looked in the mirror, she remembered her name is Daphne, daughter of the House of Northencroft, a family of master puppeteers. She remembered the day night brought its bloodthirsty servants upon the house where she came to life. It was that night she witnessed her bloodline end under the influence of the Night Lord. She remembered her last moments, right before she became the Revenant and came back to life as a vengeful spirit. She was there, hiding from the night, but she failed. She was caught. Last thing she saw was a lifeless doll as the night ended her existence. Though she was but a doll now, she couldn't help but live through the night of the storm over and over again. Even now, she was still held in the night's grasp. Black streaks covered her face, as if she was never meant to leave the mansion that day. She desperately tried to cover the marks of the night, eating her existence from within. For now, cosmetics she got from Iron Menial were enough to conceal the tragedy of her past. Then she remembered the words of the old witch carried by Iron Menial. Within your memories is a hole of not inconsequential size. It seems that the night is using this toehold to take root. She had no memories of anything before she opened her eyes as the doll. But if she couldn't find the missing pieces, she could never banish the presence of the night burning inside her. She tried to apply the makeup one last time, but she just couldn't do it. Back then, Daphne never needed to apply her own makeup. There were always others doing it for her. After all the struggle, the task was finally done. She covered the marks of the night for now. But as she stared dead into the mirror, she began to wonder, what was the name she gave to the doll she now possesses? That day, Revenant fell asleep next to Recluse. Dolls had their dreams. She found herself back in the house on the day of the storm, before the night destroyed her home. She could see the doll at the end of the room. "Let's put on a little makeup, Daphne." She recalled the words. She had always liked having her makeup done. Then she remembered she never needed to put on her own makeup because Lady of the House, Chloe, always took care of her dolls. She lived through the nightmare once again. No matter how many minions of the night she had slain, she could never change a memory. Once again, she witnessed the end. The daughter of the house is no more. She will never caress my face again, no matter how I yearn, she said to herself. She was never human. Daughter of the house of Northencroft, Daphne was just a doll, brought to life as Revenant when Chloe lost her life in front of her. But the mantle of the doll no longer fit her. She had defeated the essence of the night growing inside her, but there was one more thing she had to accomplish. She had to destroy the very reason that turned her into a revenant. So she challenged the Night Lord to bring an end to the night of the storm.
My fellow spellcaster, I thank thee for bestowing thy love upon our night.
The Witch of the Deep Woods wasn't pulled into Limweld like the others. She was in desperate search of something long lost in shadows. Her companions called her Recluse. As a cursed witch with a dark past, she had no other name. She drew her powers from laurels imbued with blood rites. She had no training like the sorcerers of House Carrion. She couldn't naturally commune with the essence of the moon or the glintstones, but her powers came from something foul, a source strong enough to match the likes of the other gods. Her stuff unlocked the peculiar fields of magic that flowed through a given region. Near Lens Between, she could commune with glintstones and wield them better than the grand sorcerers of Liurnia. She arrived at Limweld in hopes of finding her lost infant. It was no ordinary child, but something powerful and dangerous. At the Round Table Hold, she spent her time digging through piles of books. There was one thing for certain: if she was to find it, she had to recognize the signs that would point the way. On her journey, she came across a creature under the influence of an evil force. The night-swallowed beast was carrying the essence of her lost infant. Once the battle ended, Recluse claimed a night shard from her foe. The crystallized power of the night could lead her to her infant, but she had no means of achieving this by herself. And so, she asked for the Menial's help. Through their collective research, Iron Menial got his hands on the Vestige of the Night. Alongside the Vestige of the Night, the Night Shard had teeth marks. Both possessed the remnants of an ancient magic Recluse had imbued long ago. Once the infant disappeared, it was welcomed by the Night Lord. The gluttonous creature could devour shadows of any kind, and so it was tricked into submission by the Night Lord. Recluse was closer than ever to finding the creature again, but she needed more help. The Vestige of the Night held remnants of another ancient magic. It would have been an unsolvable mystery to anyone, but Recluse sensed the source of the magic. It belonged to the Witch of the Veil. She was supposed to have departed long ago, but all the clues pointed towards her resurrection. So, Recluse began searching for the witch all across the round table. It wasn't long before she found the witch disguised as the menial. The witch had been resurrected by the Night Lord for a reason, but for now the only thing that mattered was the fate of the infant creature. The Witch of the Vale had been nursing the infant in Recluse's absence, yet in the Great War, infant lost itself after devouring the shadows of enemy forces. It turned on its nurse and devoured the witch, and later parleyed with the Night Lord. Without Recluse, infant was terrified and lonely. No amount of care it received from the Witch of the Vale was enough. In the end, infant devoured the witch's shadow, ending her existence. Mistakes made by Recluse had cost her a dear friend. After their conversation, Recluse rushed back to Iron Menial. She was given a bone-like stone with the power to expunge divine essence. Through the stone, she could hear the voice of the infant. There was only one obstacle left before she could reunite with the infant. She faced the aspect of the night. After a fierce battle, she was welcomed by the sound of her infant within the round table. She couldn't undo her mistakes from the past. She could never bring her old friend back. But now, she could embrace the infant and give it the care it has always yearned for. Under her protection, the infant was finally freed from the influence of Hailstorm. Its cries finally ceased. The gentle night within its breath now knew a peaceful slumber.
You were searching for the Black Claw, were you not? The ancient enemy with whom you could finally settle your business.
No pirate of the coastal waters could earn a respectable reputation without defeating a worthy rival. For Raider, nothing mattered more than a battle to thrive for. Life in the still seas, away from the battlefield, was no life for such a warrior. His nature eventually dragged him into Limweld. There was no coast hidden from his fury, no more enemies left to defeat. But far across the sea, Limweld hosted pure chaos, just enough to ignite the fury within Raider once again. And thus, Raider made his way to Limweld. The encroaching Night Lord was precisely the challenge he longed for. Limweld was a dying battlefield, full of worthy opponents and Night Lords to slay. When he put on his white-horned helmet, he could hear the distant murmuring of the coastal waters. Round Table was as close as he could get to reliving the feeling of home again. So, Raider fought. He hunted non-stop. Powerful enemies fell before him one by one. He slew Night Lords who dared to stand in his path. But even when he fought a losing battle, he couldn't shake off the feeling of emptiness. He removed his helmet and placed it on the floor with a tongue. It was in the short breaks between each battle to that he could sit down and think about the forces that had dragged him into Limweld. "Do you feel the same way, old friend?" Raider said, as he stared blankly at the white-horned helmet. All the enemies he had beaten in Limweld entertained his thirst for battle, but no enemy truly satisfied his need for a rival. Once again, he needed someone who would pour their soul into battle to death, a rival fierce enough to make one's blood boil. He was certain that such a warrior could not be far, and perhaps was even quite close. Within the round table, he came across a majestic standing stone. A tournament was about to begin. He could finally face rivals who lived for the battlefield. His first opponent didn't stand a chance against the white-horned warrior. Raider was the victor. Facing a fierce enemy within the arena was successful in satisfying his thirst for battle. He couldn't think of anything other than the words of Iron Menial, the potential to discover a truly worthy opponent. For the pirates of the coastal waters, such a rival was more precious than any treasure. Eventually, Raider faced his second opponent in the tournament. It was a similar beast to the ones he used to watch alongside his first mate Nightreign. Once Raider left the arena as the victor, he was greeted by a rather unexpected visitor. Assassin of the Fellowship, Iron Eye was rather talkative that day. Whitehorn and Blackclaw, was it? Intriguing story, but I heard they never settled who would rule the coastal waters. Why not? To which Raider replied, "Pirates of the coastal waters never forget a vow to lock horns. We would rather die than live as cowards." He never forgot his true rivals. He swore he would meet the pirates of the western seas in a fight to death one day. The day of the final battle finally came, but the standing stone wasn't ready to call the challengers yet. Sea breezes in the distance reminded him of the coastal waters, where he once sat on the shores, arranged to meet his rival. "Give this one up, Captain. He's part of the night now," Nightreign said. "I will hold on to this for now," Raider replied, as he peered west at a sea engulfed by darkness. On the final day, Raider finally met his one true rival in the arena. When he concluded decades-long rivalry, he left the tournament as the one true Raider of the Western and the Eastern Seas. Raider gave the white-horned helmet back to its owner and was Blackclaw once again. He wondered how Weatherwain might have recorded their battle in words. The pirates of the coastal waters love nothing more than a worthy rival. But these days, Raider no longer hears the gentle murmur of the waves. For him, sea churns no longer.
My mother taught me the recipe. It keeps well and won't leave you hungry. Just something I like to do. To remember.
Wilder departed from his faraway home, braving the sea of fog to reach his destination. He was one of many Nightfarers drawn to Limweld across the fog. He spent countless days and nights drifting slowly, losing memories of his past, his home and his family. Though he may have become a shell of his former self, his goal never left his mind. He was destined to defeat the Night Lord. Throughout his journey, he repeated over and over, "I must track down the Night Lord and bury it. There's no other way." On his journey to the Cursed Land, perhaps what kept him sane was the single earring with its counterpart long lost. While his destination was the outskirts of Limweld, the safe haven awaiting him had only recently been unsealed. Before Wilder was even invited to the Round Table Hold, Iron Menial welcomed Duchess, a righteous thief with a blurry past. She was chosen to be the new priestess guiding Nightfarers in their deadly battle against the Night Lord. Within the Round Table Hold, filled with rare books, both new and old, by all manner of authors and every subject imaginable, on a remote island graced with a mesmerizing garden of beautiful flowers, Duchess had her fate sealed. Her soul became one with the Round Table Hold. Her existence was tied to the Night Lord's reign. Once the tyrant was defeated, her soul was destined to vanish along with the Round Table. She was no longer who she was in her past life. A priestess of the Round Table Hold had to dress accordingly, and so her duty began. She had no recollection of the past. The only thing that left to her from her previous life was the taste of a bread that reminded her of the home she once had. After a long voyage through the Sea of Fog, Wilder arrived at his destination. He was suffering from lethal wounds he had received before being welcomed into the Round Table Hold. Though he received the best treatment possible from Iron Menial, it was clear he could only survive until the Night Lord was defeated. The future held a bittersweet end for the two. Wilder had only enough strength to challenge the Night Lord. Whether he emerged victorious or not, he could never come back from that fight. While Duchess could only exist as long as her enemy remained alive. Wilder's first hunt was a success. In his expedition, he obtained a relic that belonged to Duchess. Now the Nightfarers could hunt together. Over time, the Night Lords fell one by one, but Wilder's wounds grew more severe with each hunt. Wilder continued running errands for Iron Menial. After obtaining the Slate Whetstone, Wilder was rewarded with trinkets and equipments for his journey. But there on the table, he laid his eyes on an earring that resembled the one he always held onto. After batting the earring in the light breaking through the crack in the ceiling, his suspicions were confirmed. Whoever owned this was of great importance to him. Wilder drifted into slumber with the earrings clutched in his hands. In his dream, he saw a rough image of a familiar shape. He couldn't remember the name or even the face of the figure standing before him. Then, Stranger finally broke the silence. "Goodbye for now. Once we're done, we will meet again." Those were the words he could never forget despite everything. The earring belonged to his twin sister. Wilder continued his journey without ever mentioning his sibling. As a warrior, he had to always look forward, but the same dream followed him each night. He helplessly watched his entire clan butchered before him. His cousin Ferhat, little Shirin, and his father, the chieftain, were all slain. As the sole survivor, he had to avenge his clan. It was his duty to bring an end to the night. But even then, the same voice echoed through the dream. "Once we're done, it will be a goodbye." The next day, Warrior awoke with the clink of something being placed on the table. He discovered a familiar brooch among his belongings. It was from his sister. Perhaps she still remembered the customs of their homeland. It was a gift to remind Wilder. Whether separated by land or sea, it was a promise to always fight side by side. but the words echoed through his mind once again. Once we're done, it will be a goodbye. Unaware that Duchess had already saved his life with the blessing she acquired, Wilder challenged the Night Lord with the silver tear by his side. No matter the outcome, twin horses could never run free again, but perhaps just one could gallop onward. Once the Night Lord was defeated, Wilder could have ended the night at the cost of his sister. But instead, he reached for the silver tear. He couldn't bring himself to destroy the Round Table Hold, with his sister still bound to it. So, with the use of the silver tear, he sacrificed himself to protect the last remaining member of his family. After some time, a new Night Lord came to be. The Night Lord lumbered on, indifferent to whether or not the twin horses would ever ride again. With the warrior's sacrifice, Duchess could live another cycle, to lead more Nightfarers against the foe who was once her lost twin.
I see thou hast my role in thy plight deduced. Indeed, I am the one who tore thy kind from the sky. This is the crystallization of that accursed magic.
Guardian's journey is a tragic revenge story that begins in a distant land far away from the chaos that ruined the lands between. He was born in a prosperous kingdom within the Winged Realm. His old flock, the Pinion folk, was a powerful civilization whose strength came from unity and unwavering loyalty to one another. Guardian eventually rose to become a proud knight of the Pinion folk, sworn to protect its land and its people, but peace did not last long in the Winged Realm. The kingdom was invaded by forces stronger than anything Flock has ever seen. Soon the citadel was under siege. With no hope of salvation, kingdom silently awaited its end. The Knights of the Pinion folk prepared for one final offense to weaken the invaders. In perfect formation, they took to the skies, the entire regiment moving as one, cutting through the air like a blade. They became a shield for the greater flock, but the citadel was already engulfed in flames. Pinion folk fell one by one, but they had no fear. Even after their city fell and their bodies piled atop one another, they continued their assault with unwavering resolve. To destroy the Pinion folk, they had to break their will. There was only one way to shatter the flock's unity: curse blades, forged to instill fear of losing their sacred flight. In the end, Guardian was the sole survivor of a war with no chance of victory. With the battle over and his flock gone, he traveled to the Round Table Hold in search of a new purpose, and there he found a new flock. With skilled Nightfarers from across the world, he challenged the night. A flock was strongest together. So he approached each Nightfarer one by one. Among all the Nightfarers, Recluse stood out. The towering piles of books seemed to call to Guardian by name. He approached Recluse as a student. He believed he might have saved his people if only he had known more. So he began to study, determined to protect this new flock from the forces that had destroyed his last. Guardian studied the annals detailing the cursed weapons. During his expeditions, he searched for a key to access the second volume. He hunted tirelessly until he finally defeated the Guardian Golem who guarded the stone stake. With the second volume, Guardian was closer than ever to uncovering the secrets behind the ruins of his homeland. He eventually learned the location of the final tome. While continuing to aid the Nightfarers in their hunt, he searched across the land for the shady merchant. At last he found it. With the third volume in the hand, the truth was revealed. The curse is a product of a sorcery from deep within a distant land, a script put down in blood. And now Guardian understood. He knew many tales. The pact of horses galloping across Windvale Knoll, the great adventures of the pirates of the coastal waters, the fearsome fellowship, the wandering warriors who preserved the scenes with brush and ink, and finally, the tale of the witch of the deep woods who wielded cursed magics. Now he knew Recluse had played a role in the curse that brought ruin to his old flock. But Guardian could not bring himself to harm Recluse. He had lost one flock, but it was now in his hands to protect a new one. So he forgave Recluse. He rose once again as a knight of the Pinion folk, this time with a new purpose: to protect his newfound home no matter the cost. Well, that was all for today. Like if you liked or dislike if you didn't, they both help. Anyways, I will see you on the next one. Bye.